And that's my finished object for this month. Just a tiny little project like my wedding dress. No big deal. Hi and welcome to my knitting podcast. My name is Mari and I'm a knitter and maker based in the beautiful city of Bergen. Here I sew, knit and create garments that brings me joy and fit seamlessly into my life. For me, patterns are more suggestions than rules, and I love tweaking them to make garments that suits my life and wardrobe. If you are new here, first of all, welcome. This is a space all about celebrating creativity and progress. You don't need to follow every stitch in the pattern to create something beautiful. In fact, if there's one thing I believe deeply, it's this. Patterns are suggestions, not rules. I love giving patterns a little twist, changing the constructions, adjusting the shape, swapping out yarns, or adding personal details that make the finished piece feel like me. My hope is that throughout this podcast, I can share my progress and my processes with you, and maybe even give you the permission to break a few rules of yourself. Whether you're a seasoned knitter or just picking up a few pairs of needles, I want the space to feel like a cozy sit down with a crafty friend. So, what's in store for this episode? We are keeping things relaxed and inspiring, just the way I like it. I'll be chatting about one finished object I'm particularly excited about, 2 works in progress, some gorgeous new acquisitions that I just had to add to my stash, and my more knits for March. I like to reflect on which pieces have actually been getting the most love from my wardrobe lately. So grab a coffee or a cup of tea, curl up in your favorite cozy corner, and let's talk stitches, colors, textures, and all the joy that comes from making something with your own hands. Let's start with what I'm wearing today. Right now, I'm wearing one of my absolute favorites, the Tegna with a twist, originally designed by Caitlin Hunter. This is actually my second version of the Tegna pattern. The first one was made in a soft purple yarn and I knit with a slightly looser gauge than the pattern calls for. I adored how they turned out, and the process was also a joy to knit. So naturally, I made another. This version sticks more closely to the intended gauge, but I added some personal flair. The lace panels, those gorgeous little details at the bottom, are done in a contrasting color. I also knitted extra lace sections separately and turned it into this color. It's delicate, it's unique, and it gives the whole piece a romantic, vintagey feel that I absolutely love. One big change I made to both of my versions of the Tegna was converting the original constructions into a raglan sweater. I know some people find that kind of tweaking intimidating, but for me, it made the whole knitting process smoother and more enjoyable. I'm not a huge fan of knitting back and forth, so this helped me keep my stitches in the round. I also really love how the raglan shaping fits over my shoulders and sits on my body. It's little choices like these that makes knitting feel so personal to me. Every stitch carries intention, and when I wear the piece, when I see that contrasting lace or feel the fit of the raglan, I remember that I made those choices. I trusted my instincts, and it turned out even better because of it. So if you're someone who's ever hesitated to modify a pattern, this is your gentle nudge. Go for it. Start small, maybe it's a color change, maybe it's using a different yarn than the suggested one, maybe it's adding a cute little detail like a collar, like this, or switching up the constructions. Let your creativity lead the way. Alright, that's enough gushing about the Tegna. We have a lot of ground to cover today. Let's jump into the main section of this episode, my finished object. This is probably the most important project of the year, or maybe even my life. Yes, you guessed it, I have finished my wedding dress. And honestly, just saying that out loud gives me butterflies. Because it's real, and the big day is now only 2 weeks away. So, let me take you behind the scenes of this very personal, very ambitious, and slightly chaotic journey of knitting. my own wedding gown. I've always been drawn to the idea of making garments that truly reflect who I am, so when I got engaged last year, I knew it right away. I wanted to make my dress, and not just any dress, but one that celebrated the craft I love the most, while still feeling elegant, bridal, and uniquely me. Kutawa stunning knitted dress inspired the one I have created. The shape, fitted at the top and flaring out at the bottom, felt like the perfect blend of modern, feminine, and romantic. I wanted something that hugs the body but still allows for graceful movement. So, for the skirt, I've decided to mix lace patterns that I've loved for years. I started with a few rows of beautiful magnolia motifs from Coming Milavad, then blended them with delicate dahlia leaves from Lene Holmesson Søes design. This is a patchwork of inspiration that makes the project feel so alive, like a timeline of everything I loved about knitting lace. As for the bodice, this part has been a creative adventure, all of it on its own. I loosely improvised the top, borrowing textures and stitches from the Japanese knitting Bible. If you ever flip through that book, you know it's full of gems. Delicate, detailed, and often surprisingly architectural. It gave me so many great ideas for crafting a look that felt structured but soft. Now, the last couple of weeks hasn't been smooth sailing. Actually, there was a bit of knitting emergency during Easter. So here's what happened. I had finished all the parts of the dress, everything, and when I started assembling them, feeling pretty pleased with myself, I might add, I quickly realized something was off. The gauge of the upper part of the skirt wasn't right. It didn't match the rest of the dress, and the fit was just not it. So, it's safe to say I was in a mild state of panic. But after a bit of thinking and some washing machine magic, I managed to trick the fabric to behave the way I wanted. And would you believe it? It actually turned out like I had imagined. And I'm so proud of how that section looks now. Of course, feeling bold after that victory, I made a very mighty decision to add pearls. I decided to embroider pearls onto my lace wedding dress just 2 weeks before the wedding. I know, a classy crafter's move. And in truly, how hard can it be spirit, I dove in. Turns out it wasn't that difficult at all. But wow, the time it takes. Let's just say it's been a few late nights with the podcast in the background and a lap full of pearls. Still, every tiny little bead stitch on it feels like a little blessing. A reminder of how much love has gone into this dress. Now, let's talk materials for a moment, because I know some of you will want all the details. I have chosen Sandnes Sunday for the yarn for the entire dress. I wanted to work with wool, not only because I love how it feels in my hands, but it's also because it behaves beautifully in lace patterns. Wool has this incredible ability to bloom when it's blocked, which was important to keep the dress light, airy, and elegant. Sunday also comes in this gorgeous crisp white, just right for a wedding dress. And it's widely available, at least here in Norway. But beyond the knitting itself, one of the most essential parts of this project has been what you don't see, the underdress. Because let's be honest, knitting lace is stunning, but it's pretty see-through and it does not provide the structural support you need for a full-length gown. So I have been working on sewing a simple but carefully designed slip dress to go underneath. I'm using a slightly heavier silk satin that gives the gown structure and form without making it feel too stiff. Knitted fabric tend to just fall straight down, which can be beautiful, but I wanted this dress to have a bit more shape. To solve that, I made the slip dress with a defined mermaid silhouette, just like the knitted layer, but it's slightly narrower throughout the skirt. That way the knitted fabric can drape and move over it while still holding that beautiful shape at the bottom. I'm really happy with how these two layers are coming together. And yes, this has taken an insane amount of time and energy and trial and error, but every moment has been worth it. There's something really powerful about wearing something you made with your own two hands, especially on such a meaningful day. I wanted a dress that feels like me, and I think I made it. Now, I'm not going to reveal every little detail just yet. I've got to save something for the wedding day. But don't worry, I've been filming the whole process as I go, and there will be a full video dedicated entirely to the making of my wedding dress. So if you want to see the whole journey, the drama, the triumphs, all of it, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it when it goes live. And that's my finished object for this month. Just a tiny little project like my wedding dress, no big deal. Let's move on to what's on my needles right now. Because of course, even with the wedding dress in progress, I couldn't help to knit on a few other projects as well. Even though my main focus this month has been the dress, the wedding dress, I have snuck a few blissful knitting breaks with another project that's been such a joy to work on. Let me introduce you to my current work in progress, the Imro dress. Now, this is exactly my kind of knitting. A little bit of structure, a whole lot of improvisation, and just enough math to make it feel like a puzzle I'm solving stitch by stitch. I didn't start this project with a fully mapped out plan. Instead, I used a vest pattern as my starting point and mainly to guide the upper construction, but I've already made so many changes both to the shape and the gauge. There's barely anything left of the original pattern. Right now, it's on its way to becoming a real dress. I finished the bodice and picked up stitches along the bottom edge. I'm now knitting my way downwards the skirt, and now there's no turning back. One thing that makes this project really special is that I'm knitting it entirely from stash yarn, which always feels good. There's something deeply satisfying about seeing those beautiful yarns, some of which I've been saving for years, finally come together into something I hope that will be a wardrobe staple. Here's what's on my needles for this dress. Is Isager Highland wool. This one is spun from Peruvian sheep wool, and I absolutely adore the color with its depth that comes through. That's because the wool is dyed before it's spun, which creates this beautifully blended effect. The shade I'm using is wine, which is rich, warm, and full of depth. It has a lovely texture, not too rustic, and still not too smooth. I'm also using Isager tweed. I have more of it, but this is the wool I'm currently working on. It's a single ply blend made out of 70% wool and 30% mohair. It has a slightly rustic homespun feel that gives the fabric some personality. But the mohair softens it and adds just that hint of sheen while still giving the fabric some tonal variation. I'm also using some garnsur mohair. And this is the heart of the project. Garnsur was a Norwegian indie dyeing collective that worked with immigrant and minority women, offering both employment and a chance to learn new skills throughout the fiber arts. Their yarns are full of life, creativity, and meaning, and I feel fortunate to still have some skeins in my stash. The mohair I'm using is soft, it's airy, and is ever so slightly unpredictable in the best possible way. This project has been such a refreshing contrast to all of the white lace I've been working on with the wedding dress. The warm tones are grounding while the subtle color shifts in the yarn keeps it interesting. It's that perfect balance of meditative and enjoyable. Since last we talked, I've made some solid progress on the skirt. Here. And it's really starting to look like a dress now. I'm knitting it on 6mm needles, getting a gauge of around 13 stitches per 10 centimeters, which means the fabric is flowing beautifully off the needles. The plan, well, let's say the ambition for this is to be a full-length dress, reaching almost down to my ankles. I'm adding side slits for movement and a bit of that extra swish when I walk. I have mentally prepared myself for a bit of yarn chicken situation, especially since I'm working from stash, but surprisingly, I think I'm okay. I'll keep my fingers crossed. That said, I was overly optimistic about how quickly this would knit up. I had this dreamy vision of finishing it to wear it before spring set in, but yeah, that's not happening. It's still very much a work in progress. That said, I think it's going to be a go-to piece for autumn. It has that comfy, cozy feel to it. I can already picture styling it with boots and layering it with a crisp shirt. It's also been such a peaceful project. Something I can pick up when I need a break from the pressure of deadline knitting. The texture, the colors, the improvisation, it feels like a return to play, which honestly is what I needed in the middle of the wedding prep. For me, this dress is a reminder that not every project has to be perfect or fast or even fully planned out. Sometimes the most satisfying pieces are the ones that grow organically, where you let your yarn guide you, follow your curiosity, and see where you end up. So if you've been sitting on some yarn you love, or not quite sure what you want to do with it, maybe this is your sign. Cast on something wild, try out an idea, combine colors, improvise. You don't need a roadmap, you just need a curiosity and a little courage. Alright, that's my biggest whip for this month, but it's not the only one. So now let's talk about the other project that's been on my needles. The Dori Vest by Rauma. I have to say, it's such a charming little piece. If you haven't seen it before, it's a short, straight fit vest with a round neck, knit entirely in brioche stitch. It features side ties that gives it a slightly playful and wearable silhouette, perfect for layering over shirts or dresses, especially in that transitional weather between winter and spring. The construction is top down, which I always love because it lets you customize the fit as you go. I have started by knitting the back flat and from there you shape the shoulders as you go. Then after that you pick up stitches for the shoulders and then you knit the front, which I have just started here. The pattern recommends 4.5mm needles, but I've gone with 4mm needles since I tend to knit a little loosely. I still have a little bit of a too loose gauge for this vest, but I think it will be fine. I think I still will get that squishy fair fabric to hold the structure and still be soft and drapey. Now, let's talk yarns, because I'm really excited about this one. This is Rauma Fivel. It's a 2-ply carded yarn spun from the finest fibers of Norwegian lamb's wool. It's soft, but it's not slick. There's a lovely bit of woolly grip to it, and it makes the brioche texture just pop. It has this lightweight, airy feel while still being warm, and there's something about the twist of it that makes the stitch definition stand out so beautifully. I'm knitting in the color 09, which is this deep classic navy blue, one of those versatile colors that feels elegant but still cozy. It's the kind of shade that works across seasons. I think it'll pair beautifully both with bright and softer tones in my wardrobe. That said, note to self and anyone watching, this yarn is rustic wool. So if you're particularly sensitive to that classic wool feel, you might want to swatch and test it against your skin first. For me, it's soft enough to wear, rustic enough to hold structure, and I have that beautiful wool shine. Now, I'll admit, when I was casting this on, I had a vision of it of just flying through it. You know that moment when you hold the yarn, you look at the pattern and you think, oh, this will be quick. Yeah, turns out I'm still optimistic. Since my last check-in, I finished the back piece and made solid progress on the front. So things are moving along, but this isn't one of those projects that flies off the needle in a weekend. The brioche stitch, while satisfying and squishy, does take time and attention. Because you have to work every row twice. Plus, to be fair, my mind and needles have been very much preoccupied with a certain dress project. Just a little something called my wedding dress, which you may have heard about once or twice already in this episode. Because of that, both the vest and my Imro dress has been resting quietly in their project bags for most of this month, waiting for their moment. And now that the big dress is officially off the needles, I'm really excited to return to these smaller but still incredibly satisfying projects. There's something so lovely about picking up where you left off, especially when the pressure is off and you're just knitting for the joy of it again. I'm hoping to wrap this vest up in the next couple of weeks. The fit is really wearable and I think it'll be perfect for those early spring days when you just want something warm and layered over a light blouse or a long sleeve. It also feels like a bit of a seasonal shift is coming in my knitting. I'm starting to crave lighter pieces, softer palettes and smaller projects. So that's all for my works in project, nothing too wild or impulsive, just a steady addition to the wardrobe to be. But with the wedding dress behind me and the warmer days ahead of me, I can already feel that spring cast on energy bubbling up. So stay tuned because I have a feeling some colorful, breezy knits are going to make their way onto my project lineup very soon. I like to take a moment to share a little segment I call Knits in Use, where I talk about the pieces I've been getting the most wear lately. One of those core values in my knitting philosophy is intentionality. Creating garments that not only brings joy while knitting, but truly fits into my everyday life. Things I'll reach for again and again. That might mean making small tweaks to patterns or sometimes big ones. This past month, the spotlight has really been on my porcelain sweater. Well, technically it's a porcelain cardigan. Let me explain. The original porcelain pattern is this beautiful sweater, but I realized pretty early on that I'll get more use out of it as a cardigan. I love layering pieces and being able to throw on a cardigan over a dress, t-shirt or even tailored pants. This is the kind of versatility I'm always looking for. So I've adopted the pattern. I've knitted it in the round, I've steeked it and I added a button band. And voila, it became a cardigan. That's the one thing I love most about knitting, the freedom to adopt. You don't have to follow the pattern exactly. Think of it as a starting point. You're allowed to make it work for your style, your body or your needs. Aside from changing the construction, I also made two significant modifications. I've knitted at a looser gauge, which gave the finished fabric a looser and more airy feel, perfect for our unreliable Bergen weather, but it also shortened the body of the cardigan to make it more cropped. That way it layers nicely with high-waisted trousers or dresses without feeling bulky. Shortening was actually pretty simple, and I thought it might be helpful to walk you through the math in case you ever wanted to do something similar. First, I figured out how long I wanted the cardigan to be. Then I took the length listed in the pattern and subtracted the length I wanted it to be, and that way I had the number of centimeters or inches to cut in the pattern. I multiplied that by the raw gauge and divided it by 10. Then you get the total number of rounds or rows to cut. And I spaced that evenly throughout the pattern. The formula looks like this. Length to cut times gauge divided by 10, the number of rounds to cut. Simple math, big impact. And let me tell you, it paid off. This cardigan is so wearable, It's one of those pieces that I naturally reach for without thinking. It works with everything, it's super comfy, and it makes me feel like myself. The color is not very original, very similar of that white and blue porcelain, but it was something I really loved about the design, so there was no need to change that. One of the things I love about this sweater is how it serves as a reminder. You are the boss of your knitting. Patterns are there to support you, inspire you, guide you, but at the end of the day, you're the one wearing it, so why not make it your own? There's so much joy in customization. In making tiny decisions like changing the neckline, adjusting a sleeve length, or adding buttons. That turns a garment into something personal. Something that not only fits your body, but also your style, your routine, and your climate. Knitting my porcelain cardigan was one of those satisfying experiences where the vision I had in my head turned into something real and useful. And that's the magic of knitting, isn't it? If you got a pattern in your library that you love the idea of, but it doesn't quite fit your lifestyle, give yourself permission to play. It doesn't have to be complicated. A small change can go a long way. Alright, that wraps up my knits and use for this time. I'd love to hear what knits you've been reaching for this month. Is there a sweater that hasn't left your shoulders, or maybe a pair of socks that's been seen a lot of cozy mornings? Drop it in the comments. I'm always curious to hear what's working in your real life, not just on your needles. And now for the last part of the episode, let's talk acquisitions. I love to dream about future projects, and for me, yarn is a gateway to creativity, dreaming, and project planning. And yes, my friends, I have some delicious new yarns to show you. And this time, the acquisitions were a little extra, but I promise it's all justified, mostly, kind of. Earlier this year, one of my absolute favorite dyers, Bien Aimée, had a sale, and not just any sale, their first sale ever. So naturally I went in intending to be reasonable, but the thing is, when you know you love a yarn base and you stumble upon colors you dreamed about for years, well, sometimes you go a little bananas. But I have no regrets. Because here's the thing, I only buy yarn when I know I'll use it. These are bases I love, in shades that speaks to me, and I already have plans or dreams for most of them. So let me take you through the treasures that made their way into my stash. First up, I had to get my hands on some Yellow Brick Road graffiti on the Rosa Pomar Mondim base. Now, this colorway is basically my soulmate in yarn form. It's the perfect blend of pouchy and earthy, playful, but it's not too loud. I already have two beloved projects in this color, my Swag sweater, which I wear all the time, and a brioche stitch fade that feature this shade as the anchor. So yes, I have bought some more. Because when you know something works for you, why not? This time around, I'm planning to use it for a lace top. I absolutely love knitting texture in the Mondim base. It's tightly spun, which helps the lace motifs to really stand out crisply. And it's still an untreated wool, so it's got all that rustic charm and bounce. It's really the best of both worlds, structure and soul. Next in is Grello, also on the Mondim base. I don't have a set project for this one yet, but I do have a handful of leftovers from the previous Fade project. And with this new skein in the mix, I'm pretty sure I have enough to do something. What exactly is still a mystery, but honestly, that is part of the fun. Sometimes just having the yarn and dreaming about the possibilities is inspiring enough. Now, for something a bit different. The Felix base. Felix is the sibling to yarn to Helix, which I already know and love. It's a clean, it's a blend of Falkland Merino and Corriedale, and what makes this special is its clean white base. The brightness acts acts as a perfect canvas for bold, saturated dyes, so the colorways are really pop. It's super soft, which with this plush, airy quality that makes it ideal for layering pieces. I choose this petrol blue, which is rich and moody, and I think it will be the perfect knit, double-stranded, to achieve a sport break gauge. I don't have the exact pattern in mind yet, but I'm picturing a sweater with a simple structure. And finally, the piece de resistance, the one that scares me just a little but won me over completely. Peanut butter and jelly on the helix base. This colorway has been on my radar for a long time. I've admired it from afar. I've added it to my cart and then removed it a few times. It's bold, it's playful, and it's a little outside my comfort zone. But this time I went for it, because sometimes you just need to push yourself out of your comfort zone and try something new. The helix base itself is absolutely dreamy. It's light fingering weight, yarn blended of Falkland merino and Gotland wool. The Gotland wool gives it this subtle halo and a beautiful luster, almost like mohair, but more wearable. The base color has a soft silver gray undertone, which makes a dyed shade looks almost glowing. I love how much depth and complexity it adds to the fibers. Now, what I'm going to knit with this peanut butter and jelly shade, that's still TBD. It's such a statement color that I want to make sure I use it for something that I'll actually wear, not just enjoy knitting. So I'm turning the idea over in my head and letting it simmer a bit before I commit to a pattern. Overall, this ended up being a longer acquisition segment than I usually have. I don't have a massive stash, and I actually like it that way. I want my yarn collection to be full of intention and joy, not overwhelm. For me, the sweet spot is having just enough yarn to dream and plan with, but not so much that I feel restricted when a new project idea hits. I want to be able to buy yarn for a specific project when I'm excited about it, and not feeling weighed down by the yarn I already have. And this haul, it hits all the right notes. It's beautiful bases, beloved colors, and a few bold risks to shake things up. Thank you so much for joining me for this third episode. If you made it all the way to the end, leave a little cherry blossom emoji in the comments. I'll know you're one of the best. I'm really grateful that you are here. I'd love to hear what's on your needles, or if you've discovered any new yarns. So let's keep this a space of sharing and inspiring each other. I'll be back in a few weeks with another podcast episode and some other knitting related videos before that. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks again for watching, and keep knitting what brings you joy in life.